So did you like the intro? What is up, awesome people of the internet? This weekend was filled with so many games. It was hard to keep up with women's college basketball. There were showcases, there were classics, and then we also had some normal games here and there. So let's get you all updated with everything you need to know from this past weekend. So probably the biggest classic over the weekend was the Cayman Island Classic. This classic featured 8 teams. Participating schools included 4 very well-known programs and then also 4 not so well-known programs, but well-known in the WNIT space. We had LSU, UConn, Virginia Tech, and UCLA. And we also had Kansas, Tulane, Virginia, and Niagara. So the biggest game of the classic for sure was the UConn versus UCLA game, and I made a video about that. So if you want to learn more about that particular game, just click right up here to get my analysis on that one. The other games I want to talk about are Virginia Tech's games. They played Kansas and they played Tulane on a Friday and Saturday. Both of those games were really rough for the Hokies. Sure, they did get away with the win. But it truly was by the skin of their teeth, because, you know, it was close. It was a close one. And that's even with Elizabeth Kitley's 31 points. Against Kansas, this game really was neck and neck. And I thought that Kansas was going to come out with the victory, but there was a very poor late game shot that Kansas made or attempted and missed. Kansas was taking the ball out of bounds with 5.7 seconds on the clock, and they were down by 1 point. Instead of giving the ball to Tayana Jackson in the post, they ended up running a play for Ryan Cobbins, who ended up forcing a bad shot and airballing it. So Virginia Tech ended up winning 59-58, though, in my opinion, I feel like Kansas played well enough throughout the entire game to win that game, besides that last 5.2 seconds. And so they could have had the upset, but they did not leave with the upset. Though they came close. Kansas is a pretty good team. I will also add that Kansas, in the Kansas UConn game, they gave UConn a run for their money as well. Yes, UConn won 71-63, but that game again was super close throughout. And the only real difference was that UConn had a better start in that first quarter than the Jayhawks did. But if it wasn't for that, first quarter lead, this game would have been a lot closer, and Kansas actually would have won this game. So lesson to y'all: do not sleep on Kansas. They won the WNIT tournament last year, and they're looking to make the NCAA tournament this year. And they're looking pretty good. They held their own against both Virginia Tech and UConn, which in my book is very impressive. All right, so in Virginia Tech's second game against Tulane, that game was also pretty close, with Virginia Tech only winning by 6 points with a final score of 76-70. All right, guys, let's look at some of the other games for the Cayman Islands Classic. LSU won both of their games. They had a comfortable 99-65 win over Niagara, and then they had a super close skin of their teeth win against Virginia. In both of those games, Anissa Morrow, aka Nice the Beast, was dominant. In both games, she averaged 32 points and 13 rebounds a game in between both of those two games. And for those who are wondering, neither Angel Reese or Kateri Poole made the trip to the Cayman Islands. So we still don't know what's going on with that, though. It has something to do with discipline, according to a recent Kim Mulkey comment.
Has this season proved to be different?
No.
Than anything before? Is it still the things that worked for you in the past are still working for you?
Yes. You always have to deal with locker room issues. That's just part of coaching. In 40 years, I can never think of a time where I didn't have to deal with issues. That's what coaches do. Sometimes y'all know about them and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to know more than you're entitled to know. I'm going to protect my players, always. They are more important. It's like a family, Scott. Let me ask you this. If you do some disciplining of your own children, do you think we're entitled to know that? That's a family in that locker room. That's a family. And it really doesn't matter what I say to you guys. You're going to write and interpret things the way you want to. Some of you wrote some things that I never said. I never used some of the words that y'all wrote. You interpreted it the way you wanted to. Just write what I tell you. But this is no different. I've been doing this for 40 years. And guess what? I don't know that I have 40 left in me, but if whatever I have left in me, you're gonna deal with stuff. And those kids are like my children. And I'm not going to tell you what you don't need to know.
There's been lots of talk about Angel Reese and Kateri Poole, so I am not going to continue on. I just wanted to just give you all that update, but like I'm not going to continue on talking about this because there is no update. So everyone's just sort of repeating the same thing over and over again. So there is no update about Angel Reese and Kateri Poole. When there's an actual update and when they actually step back on the court and actually are interviewed about it, I will make a separate video about it, but there's no update, so nothing to talk about here. Now there is one thing about the Cayman Islands Classic that I want to call your attention to, is that even though they technically call this a tournament, it's not really a tournament because there's no brackets, and there was no champion on the women's side, though there were like real brackets and an actual champion on the men's side. All right, now let's talk about the all tournament team, which includes Tayana Jackson from Kansas. She is 6'6" and a senior from East Chicago, Illinois. We have LSU's Anissa Morrow, a 6'1" forward from Chicago. We have Niagara's Chardonnay Hartley, a sophomore 5'3" guard from Harlem. We have Tulane's Hannah Pratt, a 6'1" graduate forward from Boca Raton. We have UCLA's Kiki Rice, a 5'11" guard from Bethesda. We have Paige Beckers, a 6' junior guard from Hopkins, Minnesota. And we have Yanada Vaughn, a 5'8" guard from District Heights in Maryland. And finally, we have Elizabeth Kitley, a 6'6" graduate center from Summerfield, North Carolina. All right, so from the Cayman Islands to Cancun for the Cancun Challenge. The Cancun Challenge lasted from November the 24th to the 25th, and the challenge featured 10 teams. Creighton, Georgia Tech, Green Bay, James Madison, Maryland, Michigan State, Montana State, New Mexico, Massachusetts, and Washington State. Now, this tournament features some really, really good games and one huge upset. So the number 23 ranked Washington State beat Maryland in a comfortable game with a final score of 87-67 on Thanksgiving. Then on Black Friday, Washington State beat UMass 90-48. And then they got real bad by losing to Green Bay 59-48. So credit goes to Green Bay for really, really locking down on the defensive end and just plain out hustling Washington State. Green Bay ended up leading in just about every metric, including field goal percentage, total rebounds, assists, steals. They were just overall the better team. And again, like I say, you can't sleep on any of these teams, ranked or unranked, because they can play. The loss by Washington State will likely get them dropped out of the top 25 list. And it's a huge deal. It is a huge deal. And it just shows that, one, Green Bay are not some scrubs. They're a pretty solid team that's well coached. And two, you just got to be ready every game. Every game you got to be ready. And every game your players have to be on, because otherwise you're going to get caught, Defense won that game, and shout out to the ladies who play at Green Bay for pulling off this upset. It's pretty impressive. And Maryland bounced back after losing their first game against Washington State. They beat Mass 92-63, and they also beat Green Bay 68-59. One of the best parts about the tournament for sure was Brenda Frese doing this.
I thought the unselfishness was there. It was a lot more fun to watch us make an extra pass, to start cutting and moving, and we grew in that game. It's nice to come out of here and knowing like the last two games that you were, kind of challenged. You put your head down and you went to work. I love those hustle plays to save that third quarter. Like we kept competing, every single quarter, which was a phenomenal job.
Alternate players for this tournament include Charlize Legger-Walker with Washington State, Tara Wallach from Washington State, Cheyenne Sellers from Maryland, Jakia Brown-Turner from Maryland, Cassie Schlitz from Green Bay, and Stephanie Kuliza from UMass. All right, now on to the Gulf Coast Showcase. So this tournament featured some really good games. It featured Kansas State, Western Kentucky, North Carolina, Vermont, Florida Gulf Coast, Delaware, Iowa, and Purdue Fort Wayne. Now this showcase really was a true tournament style that didn't feature any real surprises, I would say. North Carolina and Florida Gulf Coast made it to the third place game, with Florida Gulf Coast getting the win. They are a legit team. And it just shows that North Carolina really needs to figure out what they're doing at the point guard position, because it's just not working. It's just not working at all. So that's definitely something that North Carolina needs to work on, especially if they hope to actually make it into the NCAA tournament. The two best teams in this tournament was K-State and Iowa, who made it to the championship game. And Iowa came out on top with the victory, redeeming themselves from their previous loss to K-State. And a thing to note is that they did so. Iowa won without Hannah Stokey, their starting center, who injured her ankle in the first game of the showcase against Florida Gulf Coast. So that was a huge win for the team because, all this year, Hannah has been such a huge presence for Iowa in terms of her ability to defend and rebound in the post, but also her pick and roll game with Caitlin Clark. And so her not being there, other players like O'Grady and Goodman had to step up, and they did. They didn't score a lot of points, but in terms of putting together some good minutes, I think they did. I think they did that. So, it was all around a better game. Iowa versus K-State than the first game. For Iowa, at least, Caitlin was actually hitting a good amount of shots. So was Molly Davis and Kate Martin. I will say, just a side note, Molly Davis is turning into one of my favorite players. She transferred to Iowa, and she was Iowa's lone transfer. And this girl went from scoring like 20 something points a game to now, just being a role player coming off the bench or sometimes starting, and just sort of giving all that she has, knowing that she is not going to be the star of this team. And I just love her effort. I love her hustle. Like, Molly Davis is awesome. Shout out to Molly Davis on Iowa. And for K-State, I would say that the reason why they lost this game is because they stopped passing the ball to Ayoka Lee. Like, this was an issue that they had in that first game. But towards the end, it's like they got it together and started passing it to her in the first game, which is why they won that game. And for the game yesterday, it felt like the guards were trying to just kind of win it on their own, and they weren't looking to Ayoka as much. And there were some times that she did get the ball and she passed it out, but down the stretch, there was a period of time where she was on the bench for a long time in the fourth quarter. And if I was K-State, I would have had Ayoka in the game, for basically the entire fourth quarter. And I would have just given the ball to her and ran through her for the offense. Like I think K-State would have actually won, because while Iowa's defenders did the best they could against Ioka, they still couldn't stop her. They still couldn't. And so if I was K-State, I would have gave the ball to her, because they actually would have won had she played most of the fourth quarter and they actually gave her the ball consistently. So that's my opinion. Now, I do want to get into a bit of controversy that stirred up about Caitlin Clark during the showcase. Take a look at this. So as you can see, Caitlin shoved a player on Florida Gulf Coast. And people online were saying if Caitlin was somebody else, this would be a problem and this would be everywhere. I'm curious to what you all have to say. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This shove, it was a two-hand shove. Caitlin was called for an intentional foul. But I will say I only saw like 2 articles that wrote about this. And I just can't help but imagine that if this was someone else, let's even say this was Haley Van Lith who did this on LSU, it would be everywhere. I think it's a combination of people not wanting to say anything bad about Caitlin Clark because she's like the darling of the game, it seems. And then also it's a mix of Iowa just not getting a ton of press coverage, because like I just can't imagine that anybody on LSU or South Carolina would do a two-hand shove and have it not talked about on ESPN, not talked about on like Just Women's Sports or like whatever. Like it's not talked about, and I find it very interesting. Like to me, that two-hand shove is not a big deal in general. But I feel like if Haley Van Lith or Angel Reese or someone else from another team, even a UConn player, like let's say Paige Beckers did that, it would be everywhere, in my opinion. And if you didn't watch the game, and if you weren't on Twitter, sort of when this was circulating online, you wouldn't even know that Caitlin shoved someone. And again, it's not a big deal. She was frustrated, but I feel like it would have been made a big deal had it been someone else. That's my opinion. But what do y'all think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There's a lot of people who say this is like a race thing. I don't think it's a race thing, because I truly believe that, Paige Beckers would have gotten a ton of articles written about her. Haley Van Lith, same thing. It's a combination of Caitlin Clark being the sweetheart, it seems, of the game, and also Iowa just not getting a ton of coverage. So that's my opinion. But let me know what y'all think in the comments below. All right, now we move on to the Ball Dogs Classic in Las Vegas. Now this classic was a tournament style also, and it featured 4 teams. We had number 4, Stanford, number 13, Florida State, Northwestern, and Belmont. Stanford came up defeating, Florida State to win the classic. And y'all, what a game that was. We all know how great Stanford is, and they just keep continuing to show that they're up for these challenging games. Stanford won 100-88, and y'all, Kiki Iraofen, this girl balled out. She balled out. She had 30 points in this game, and she had 17 rebounds. And if the NCAA had a Most Improved Player of the Year award, it should really go to Kiki Iraofen, because this girl went from averaging 6.7 points and 3.8 rebounds a game last year to now averaging a double-double, 19.7 points and 10.3 rebounds. Like it truly is awesome to see Kiki play. Like it's something about these girls named Kiki. You like you got Kiki at USC. And you got Kiki at Stanford, who is just killing. You know, I guess it's a good time to have a name, Kiki. It's a good time. It truly was amazing to see Kiki Iraofen play. And having her paired up with Cameron Brink is like really, really awesome. And it's going to make Stanford, you know, a hard out for whatever team wants to play them, because you can't just solely focus on Cameron Brink, because Kiki Iraofen can destroy you, you know? And that's a huge challenge, because most of these other teams don't have two talented bigs that can play defense really well. You know, I'm noticing like you may have one post defender who's like really, really good, but for Stanford to really have two players who are in at the same time who are kind of dominant in the paint, it's kind of cool to see. You know, it's kind of cool to see. Like, maybe Stanford's gonna make a huge run. Like, they're looking pretty good. They're looking very good. All right, so going on to the Betty and Van Chancellor Classic, which was held in Katy, Texas. For the Betty Chancellor Classic, it featured teams such as Louisville, Liberty, Alabama, and Gonzaga. So one notable game from the Classic is that Louisville lost to Alabama. Now, I wouldn't consider that a shock per se, mainly because Alabama is a pretty good team, you know, and Louisville is still a team trying to figure themselves out, especially with their new additions. You know, they're great at getting steals, but in terms of just regular perimeter defense in the half court, I think Louisville has a lot to work on, because you know, there was a lot of threes shot against them. There was you know, the guards from the other teams, not just Alabama, were having their way to a certain extent. Yes, Louisville gets steals when they do presses, but beyond that, just half-court defense, they definitely need to improve on that. Definitely need to improve. Now on to the Van Chancellor Classic. Those teams featured Tulsa, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, Mississippi State, and Clemson. Not much to note about this classic other than the fact that Mississippi State improves to 7-0 on the season. Like, how about them dogs? They're pretty good. All right, and just when you thought these special games were over, I have one more. We wrap up this section talking about the Paradise Jam that took place over the weekend in the Virgin Islands. So the Paradise Jam included Cincinnati, Colorado, Kentucky, and NC State, who played in the Island Division. And then we had High Point, Arizona State, Florida, South Florida, and Texas, who played in the Reef Tournament. Now, this tournament really was all about the Island Division, because that featured what some people are calling a upset and what I am calling a wake-up call. NC State defeated Colorado 78-60 in the finale of the tournament. Now, people are calling this upset because technically it is, because NC State is number 10. But to me, this is not an upset, because, you know, NC State, they got those girls. Like, NC State is a very, very good team. And I think the more and more they play against these better teams, the more and more people are understanding that. So to me, this is not an upset. NC State has now beaten two top 3 teams so far this year. First with UConn, now with Colorado. Was Colorado ranked too high at number 3? Yes, they were ranked too high. But, you know, the point still stands that NC State, they're here. And they're here to take teams down, you know. River Baldwin had the best game of her entire career, going lights out, scoring 24 points in this game. And sure, you know, Rivers, she can play. River can play a lot. But I don't think anybody expected her to play that well. And it's just what makes this team special. Like, there's so many players that they have that can go off. and it makes it hard for the defenders because who exactly do you scout? I'm sure Colorado really wasn't scouting for River Baldwin, but she shocked them. You know, I'm not going to spend too much time on NC State because I will be doing a special video about them pretty soon. But y'all, teams who play NC State, y'all better watch out because they coming for you and you probably gonna lose. The Island Division all tournament team went to River Baldwin from NC State. She was also the MVP of the tournament. Maddie Shear from Kentucky, Jillian Hayes from Cincinnati, Sanaya Rivers from NC State, Jalen Sherrod from Colorado. Reef Division champs went to Texas, who destroyed South Florida 76-44. Y'all, don't sleep on Texas. Don't sleep on them. They haven't played a top 25 team yet, but they are looking pretty good. They're looking very good, actually. They play UConn on December the 3rd, so that really is a much-watched game. So we can kind of understand where Vic Schaefer is, and where the Longhorns are, and how far we expect them to make it this year. Like, they're looking pretty good, but they also haven't played the best talent in the world. So, like, I'm still holding out real thoughts about this team until they play UConn, because at least I can kind of get a gauge of where they're at. So the all-tournament team for the Reef Division include Rory Harmon from Texas. She also was the MVP. Treasure Hunt from Arizona State. Carla Burrito from USF. Jalen Brown from Arizona State. And Taylor Jones from Texas. All right, guys, that was a lot of different classics, showcases, tournaments, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of stuff that y'all might have missed over the weekend. So I just wanted to just give you all a general update of what happened, because there's a lot. There's a whole lot. And yes, there was more basketball that we could talk about, but I won't get that much into it other than to say it was a huge blowout that happened over the weekend, where South Carolina just destroyed Mississippi Valley State. But I'm not going to dwell that much into it. But I will say Mississippi Valley State, they want all the smoke from all the teams. They have played they're playing one of the toughest non-conference schedules in all of HBCUs. Also, you can actually put some of their non-conference schedules. If you can compare Mississippi Valley State versus some of these other sort of more dominant teams. And Mississippi Valley State has a harder schedule. So shout out to Mississippi Valley State. They're not afraid of that smoke, and they're getting money from it, especially playing these better schools. So it's a win-win, though you are getting destroyed every single game, which could probably be demoralizing for your team, but it is what it is. All right, so let's move on. We have some WNBA news that you may have missed. We finally have a date for the 2024 draft lottery. The lottery will be broadcasted on Sunday, December the 10th at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. And a thing to note is that the draft will actually be aired on ESPN as a 30-minute special between the Basketball Hall of Fame Women's Showcase triple header that features Utah and South Carolina, and also North Carolina versus UConn. So we first will have Utah versus South Carolina play at 1:30. Then we'll have the draft at 3:30. And then we'll have North Carolina versus UConn at 4 o'clock. So to me, this really is a good setup to surround the lottery, because having it's at a time when most people who are interested are probably able to actually watch it live, and also the fact that people will probably already be watching the Utah South Carolina game, and to have it weave right into the draft lottery, it makes a lot of sense to me. The only thing I worry about is that a lot of these games have been going over. A lot of these games have been going over 2 hours, and I could totally see a scenario where the draft is pushed back because by like 10 minutes or so, because the game goes over. Like that's my only possible issue with that. But yeah, that's pretty exciting that the draft lottery is almost here. We have the Indiana Fever, Los Angeles Sparks, Phoenix Mercury, and the Seattle Storm, who are vying to take the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft, which the draft will take place on April 15th. And yeah, we're looking forward to that because, right now, Indiana has the best chance to land the number 1 pick. So we will see soon what the finalized draft order is. And also, we will see which players actually opt for the draft. Will Caitlin Clark, will Paige Beckers, will Angel Reese, like who is going to opt for the draft? That is the huge question, and whether or not they opt into this one or they wait until 2025 when we have new WNBA teams to opt for it then. It's a question that's I'm pretty sure on a lot of players' minds because it's a big decision. Do you stay in college or do you leave? All right, on to other WNBA news. The league has announced a new partner, Kim Kardashian. That is right, the reality TV star turned entrepreneur is going to be going to some WNBA games pretty soon. And that's because her company, Skims, is now the official underwear partner of the WNBA. Also the NBA, by the way. And Skims will also become the associate partner of the 2024 AT&T WNBA All-Star Game in Phoenix, Arizona. After the announcement was made, Kim said, "We're thrilled to partner with the WNBA and to excite fans and female athletes through WNBA marquee events, brand activations, media, and campaigns. We look forward to working together and amplifying our joint values of women empowerment and individual confidence." So I have never thought that a basketball league actually needed to have an official underwear, but now that the WNBA has it, I guess that's cool. I wonder how the WNBA and Skims will actually work together on activations and media and whatnot. But they still have a lot more time to work on that. But it should be interesting. What do you all think about this new partnership? Are you more likely to buy Skims now that you know that the brand is associated with the WNBA? Let me know what you all think in the comments below. All right, now let's move on and talk about the cost of being a women's basketball fan and also schedule management. So back when I was a kid, there was only one network that actually aired women's basketball games, and that was ESPN and their family of networks. They were basically the only game in town, and their game offerings weren't that many games. So it was relatively easy to sort of keep up with all the games that were happening because they only really happen in one place. But now there are a lot more women's basketball games on TV and online, which now begs the question, how much should you subscribe to in order to keep up to date with games? And also, how do you keep track of all the games and what channels or networks or even websites will they end up on? So I want to break this down myself by looking at what I subscribe to try to get access to as many women's basketball games as possible. So for the NCAA, we have ESPN Plus, which is $10.99 a month, which gives me the hugest assortment of women's basketball games, probably the best bang for your buck thing that you can possibly get. In order to watch the Pac-12 games, I had to subscribe to Fubo TV, which was pretty expensive at $74 a month. For the ACC network, SEC, CBS Sports, TNT, Big Ten, ABC, FS1, and other channels. I watch those games through YouTube TV, though I could also watch those on Fubo. I just really, really hate Fubo's interface, and I prefer YouTube TV. So YouTube TV is $72 a month. And then we have Flow Hoops, which is a streaming service who aired a huge amount of games, amount of the classics and tournaments and whatnot over the weekend. Now, initially, I was going to subscribe for a year, but the more I thought about it, Flow Hoops just doesn't have the amount of basketball to justify $150, at least right now, to subscribe for the whole year. So instead, I opted to pay a monthly cost of $30 to watch a handful of games over the weekend. All right, so that was the NCAA. Now let's talk about the WNBA. So for the WNBA, I pay $24 a month, a year, I should say, to watch WNBA League Pass, which to me is the best deal that you could possibly get for women's basketball. You just can't say no to that. It's not that much money at all. I also pay Prime yearly at $139, so I can watch all of those Prime games, and just all the other channels, the Air WNBA games, I can just watch on YouTube TV. Like, so it's on ESPN, now Ion, CBS Sports. I can watch all those games on YouTube TV. Now, when you add all that money up, it gets quite expensive to watch just women's basketball. And because I love the game, I'm really happy to do it. With the exception of Fubo TV for the Pac-12, I think I'm going to, probably next month, I'm going to have to get rid of Fubo TV because it's just too expensive, especially when I already have YouTube TV. And YouTube TV is better for NCAA games because for Fubo TV, you have to add each women's basketball game to your library if you want to watch it after the fact. Whereas for YouTube TV, you can just add women's college basketball as a category, and any women's college basketball game that happens, YouTube TV automatically records it, and I don't have to like if I miss a game, if I miss like recording a game and I forget about it. With Fubo TV, I can't watch it after the fact. But for YouTube TV, since it records every single women's basketball game, I'm covered either way. So like that's why I'm going to get rid of Fubo and unfortunately get rid of my access to Pac-12, because that's a lot of money to spend a month just to watch Pac-12 games. Like, because I don't really watch anything else on TV now. Like, literally, basically all I watch is women's basketball. And it's a lot to keep up with. All of the different channels, and it makes it harder to make the game more accessible to people when they have to subscribe to a whole bunch of places to be able to actually keep up with what's going on in women's basketball. So I love the fact that the game has grown so much that all of these different companies want to get a piece of the pie. Like, I love that. I really do. But I wish there was like one subscription that people could have that could give them access to just about everything. Like if there was an NCAA women's basketball subscription that I can just pay some sort of monthly fee and just sort of get access to everything in one spot, so I don't have to go to ESPN Plus. I don't have to, okay, now this game's on YouTube TV. Okay, so I watch that. Oh, no, this is on Flow Hoops. Okay, so I have to watch it on my phone or watch it on my computer. Like, there's a whole sort of management about watching these games and knowing specifically, oh, what channel is this on versus what channel is this on. It's a lot. And while I am happy to do it, because I just love the game so much, I just wanted to mention that to you all and just sort of see if, I just want to sort of see what y'all think about this. This really came up when I had to get Flow Hoops in order to watch the games over the weekend. And I was just like, man, to really, really keep up with women's basketball is pretty expensive. And that's just to watch the games. And then you have to subscribe and pay all these monthly fees to get reporting about the game, as well. It's a lot, but I love it, and I'm not going to stop doing it. I'm not going to stop subscribing other than Fubo TV for the Pac-12. But yeah, what do y'all think about the cost of women's basketball? How many subscriptions do you have in order to watch women's basketball? And how do you keep track of what games are on what? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, guys, let's move on to some history. Have you ever heard of the Liberty Basketball Association? Well, it was a short-lived league. Their first and last game happened on February the 18th, 1991, in front of 10,000 fans at the Palace in Michigan. This game was also aired on ESPN, and the game was supposed to be an introductory warm-up for the league's regular season, which was supposed to start 10 months after that game, with 6 teams, including a team in Chicago. But the debut ended up being all she wrote for the league. The LBA was centered around some serious gimmicks, including a 9-foot 2-inch high basket, a shorter court, skin tight unitards for the players, and a smaller ball. So the idea was to make the game more attractive to dudes, and clearly it didn't work because the league folded after one game. All right, so why did they do what they did? So Jim Drucker, the head of the Liberty Basketball Association, said, "We did not start with what can we do for women. We started at what kind of exciting sports product can we create?" And in contrast to the bulky, grotesque uniforms that women have been forced to play in the past, Mr. Drucker says players will wear form-fitting spandex unitards required to be attractive in both arena and television viewers. Oh, and for the actual game, the Detroit Dazzlers beat the LBA All-Stars 104-87. One of the players who actually played in that game, Monica Latin, she is 6'5". She was a center from Houston. She actually had the first dunk of the game. She said, "It was the most fun I've ever had playing basketball. I got real defensive. When I first heard about the league, I thought, what are they doing to basketball? But now I can see what the organizers envisioned." Also, Carrie McGee, who also played in that game and was an attorney at the time, she said they were very uncomfortable. "I'm not going to be naive. I feel there was some level of exploitation in the decision to wear these, but they were borderline, so I decided to play." But these are aerobic uniforms, not basketball uniforms. And we're not in Jane Fonda's class. Even those of us that are thin don't necessarily want to be running around in these. If they want a new sleek look, fine. There is some room between baggy and skin tight. So yeah, that was the game. That was a very interesting one-off game that happened in Michigan. Fans who attended the game also complained about the skin tight uniforms. From what I've seen in terms of coverage about this game, it feels like the main complaint from everybody was for the uniforms. And also, if you didn't know, that game was not the only game that featured skin tight uniforms for women's basketball. Australia played in those types of uniforms for years in their international play. So, it wasn't just this one time in America that players played in those uniforms. They do look kind of awkward. I definitely wouldn't have wanted to play in those. But basically, all the complaints about this game centered around the uniforms, and it didn't center around the other stuff that was changed about the game. I didn't see any complaints about the lower rim or the shorter court in the coverage. I really think that if it wasn't for those uniforms, this league might have actually lasted a couple of months, but now we will never know. So you may be wondering, why did I highlight this league that only lasted one game? Well, I wanted to talk about it because we hear all the time that the WNBA should lower the rims, and I just wanted to point out that has been tried in the past and it didn't work. Though it was less about the rims and more about the other issues, mainly the uniforms, that made this league not work. So maybe a league will come up in the future that will allow for a shorter rim. Founder of that league thought that that would be a good gimmick to make the game more interesting, entertaining, and I'm all for that. I really am. I think it was just the leotard type uniforms that just ruined it. But and so now, but what do y'all think? Have y'all ever heard of the Liberty Basketball Association? And also, what do y'all think about those darn uniforms? And if there was a league that came out with a 9'2" rim now for women, would you watch? Would that make the game more interesting to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, and now we move on to the last section, talking about international play. And for this one, we're going to talk about a fight or a brawl that happened in China recently. So this was a game between Fujian and Hiljinjiang. I know I'm saying those incorrectly, so I do apologize. But this game also featured former WNBA player Chennedy Carter. So I just wanted to mention it, and we can watch it and talk about it as it happens. Also, shout out to Chinese Women's Hoop Show for making this video available. All right, so basically what happened is there was a huge argument between the ref and Chennedy Carter's team. Like you see her right here, she's sticking up for a teammate. That's what it seems like. It feels like she's really sticking up for a teammate. There must have been something, a bad play call or something like that, and even the coach is getting into it as well. Everyone's ganging up on he bounced the ball. I guess the whole team is mad. The whole team is mad for something that the refs did. They upset. I wish I actually knew what they were talking about, what they were saying, but I don't. But clearly, this team is very emotional. I'm not sure if maybe that's a tech. I'm not sure if that's a tech, like the two hands thing. But yeah, they keep going off. And he's saying they on the take. These refs are on the take. They on the take. And he gets ejected. And the game goes on. And let's look. They getting chippy. Look, they getting real chippy. They upset. They are upset. And we're gonna see it again. Just shove the player. And now it's a fight. Now it's a fight. And Chennedy like, nah, you ain't messing with my teammate. Do something. That's crazy. This is crazy. And the bench is empty. And got the police out there like, calm down, ladies, calm down. Yeah, this is wild. And they're like, yeah, they the ones who started this. They did But it seems like it all started with the refs, and now the refs about to eject players. Yeah, Hiljinjiang, or however you say that name. Like, they were on one in this game. They were on one. They were fed up. I don't know what their I don't know what that is. I feel like that must be an ejection. Yeah, I feel like that must be an ejection. So yeah, that was kind of crazy. It sucks that I don't actually know what caused it. But Chennedy was sticking up for a player. She was sticking up for her teammate, and hey, you gotta respect it. Shout out to Chennedy Carter. I hope she gets back in the WNBA pretty soon. But she's a player that clearly loves her team and loves her teammates, and sticks up for them, even though she put herself in a bad situation because get into a fight over in China is not the best idea. Even though it's within the context of a game, it's still, she's not Chinese and the other players are, and so there could be sort of different standards. So that's something that I think for sure is something to worry about a little bit. Though to be fair, Chennedy didn't really shove anybody. She was just very, very animated throughout, and was just sort of like, do some. But yeah, she was held back, and she kind of shoved the refs a little bit. But I don't think it was the biggest. She definitely didn't start it. She kind of like came in and was like the enforcer of sorts. What do y'all think about what Chennedy Carter did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, guys, this has been a very, 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 very long episode, and I thank you all so much for watching. You all are awesome, and I appreciate y'all. Until next time, guys. You all are awesome, and I really appreciate y'all for rocking with me. If y'all noticed, this episode featured some new looks. So let me know what you all think about that. Let me know what you think about the intro video. If you haven't liked this video, please like it. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. It takes me a long time, a lot of time to put together these episodes week over week. And I hope that you all have some benefit out of these. Thanks for rocking with me. If you all want to see something in particular in the future, let me know. And I thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, guys. Bye.